I thought I should make this video because I did not expect a marathon reboot in this day and age. I was aware of like the rumors, I think like a couple months that happened ago, but I didn't completely believe in them until it was actually real, and it turned out to be real. As someone who's a fan of the original trilogy, and I have a soft spot for this series, especially it was released at a time when FPS games were still very new and naive. Bungie was doing a lot of things to push the genre ahead after the success of the original Doom. It had an emphasis on story, health station, swimming mechanics, dual wielding. It had special techniques like rocket jumping or shootable switches. Like, this game was really ahead of its time, especially it was released around the time of the original Doom. The old Marathon games might take a while to really digest its true beauty, but it's hard to not appreciate its innovation, especially when it comes to its mechanics. The games aren't for everyone, and I will admit that. And there's a real reason why you can actually play the original trilogy on the Leaf 1 source port, and it's completely free. You don't have to pay a single dime. But even when Bungie did that announcement, it never really reached the same amount of success as like Doom or Quake, whether it was their prime years or even in today's times. Now this Marathon reboot just comes out of nowhere and decided to change like all of like the direction from the original trilogy into an all-out multiplayer driven extraction shooter. I can definitely say this. This Marathon reboot or whatever, it does not feel like a Marathon game at all. I honestly have nothing wrong with Bungie wanting to enter the extraction shooter world and, you know, make a game by trying to like, you know, see if they could find success in that type of genre, but using the Marathon IP and the name feels morally wrong. I even watched the Vidoc and I did not like how they didn't even acknowledge anything about the old games. So this game feels very weird in the perspective of someone who's a fan of the old games and Bungie in general too, because I am also a Halo fan. Matter of fact, I got into Marathon because of Halo. You know, I enjoyed Halo so much and I wanted to like, you know, try to like see what Marathon was like, because I've always heard Marathon had like a huge influence on Halo, and I definitely learned to appreciate Marathon for what it was after trying out the 3 games back in the days. And when I mean back in the days, I'm talking like probably like around 2010 or 2011 or something around there. As much I like the Marathon series, I really think there's no point of rebooting it. Back in the days before Wolfenstein The New Order or Doom 2016 existed, I would have asked for a Marathon reboot for sure, but ever since those games existed, I feel like this Marathon reboot feels unnecessary. Because Marathon was a Mac exclusive and it never had the same amount of popularity compared to other 90s retro shooters at the time, what's the point of rebooting it? The game is too niche to grab attention outside of the long-term Marathon fans or fans of obscure games. Not only that, Halo in a nutshell is basically a Marathon reboot, except it's a lot more mainstream. Halo doesn't take place in the same universe as Marathon, but there's a lot of like similar things in terms of mechanics and gameplay design are borrowed from the Marathon series. There are weapons and enemies from Halo that are heavily inspired from Marathon, like hunters or drones / wasps. The shotgun from Halo 1 is basically a tribute to the shotgun from Marathon 2 / Infinity, and Halo has this whole obsession of making the player carrying an AI along your journey, and so does Marathon. I personally believe Marathon 1's For Your Eyes Only mission is also a precursor to the original Halo's 343 Guilty Spark mission. Just the fact that both of those missions are a complete change of atmosphere, direction, and it feels different from the previous levels you played in those games. So that pretty much proves my theory of believing Halo is basically a Marathon reboot. So now let's talk about what is the purpose of this this reboot. Personally, I feel like it's just a game that's trying to capture players' interest around Bungie's name. Since it's mostly going to be a multiplayer-only game, it's going to appeal to that sort of crowd. I don't see this game appealing to any like die-hard Marathon fans. I think most old-time Marathon fans are probably feeling the same way as I do, confused and lost. It doesn't seem like it's a game for us, but why did they have to reboot it with the Marathon name? Like, that's the thing that I just don't get. Like, they should have really just called the game something else, and I wouldn't have to make this video, to be honest. Since we are getting closer to the end, what are your guys' thoughts on this Marathon reboot? Whether you've been around the block like I've had, or maybe this might be your first Marathon experience, I'm just curious to hear your guys' opinions. I will say this, I thought the trailer was cool. The trailer was very well done, and I loved the art style. It was pretty slick. It definitely had that Marathon feel to it, and I honestly think Bungie nailed down the announcement trailer in terms of people getting excited over this niche 90s FPS series. That's really all I gotta say. I'm disappointed by this reboot, but at the same time, I'm confused.